So it being on or about 6:30, bring this Easton Conservation Commission's June 6th, 2022 to order. Please note, in keeping with the an act relative to extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency as amended by Governor Baker on February 12th, 2022. This meeting will be conducted remotely over Zoom. Attendance by commission members will be remote, and remote attendance shall count towards quorum. Please note this meeting is being recorded, audio and video, and available for broadcast at a later time. We will take a roll call attendance to establish quorum. Rory Caulfield's present.
Nate Crossman present.
Al Benson present.
Ben Carroll present.
Mike Spadia present.
The only one in correct order was Spadia, but that's okay. I appreciate you keeping me on my toes. So just before we start, there are a couple of changes to the agenda. I just want to a note is that 170 Chestnut Street will get continued. So if anybody's here for that, that will get continued. And 5, I think it's already been moved. Is 5? We
91 Union.
No, well, 91 Union is going to get continued as well. Mm-hmm. So 91 Union will get continued as well. Are we? And we're taking 534 Washington out of order. Or is it
right,
Mr. Chairman, it's 5. You're booting 530, 550 Turnpike ahead of 534 Washington.
Thank you. So we're going to take 530, 550 Turnpike Street ahead of 534 Washington Street due to a scheduling issue with the Planning and Zoning Board. So just want to make those announcements before we get started. And just for the record, noting that all abutters notifications have been received for the new applications tonight. First up is 56 Cosmo Road. This is a notice of intent for installation of an in-ground swimming pool. And with us tonight, I think, is Craig Siganowski. I can't hear you, Craig.
Can you hear me now, or?
Yeah, can now, yep.
Okay, so yes, I believe the Murphys are also online, or they should be anyway, Daniel and Erica Murphy. So this is a project, existing single-family house that was built in 1989 on Cosmo Road at the corner of Riverside Terrace. There's a intermittent stream at the northerly end of the property that handles the drainage of this subdivision and a couple of others on the way down to the river. So we have the Rad Homes of Environmental Consulting and Restoration flagged the bank, the inland bank of the stream, as well as the BBW adjacent to the stream.
So Craig, do you have the plans to share, or do you want me to do that?
I can, I should be able to share if I could see where, oh, there it is.
And also just for my team, I'm not a host, so I can't do anything with attendees or anything. So.
Okay, can you see the plan?
We can, yep.
I beg your pardon, Mr. Chairman. I'll change that right now.
Absolutely not a problem. Yep.
Okay, so at the top of the screen is the north end of the property. That's where the stream is, as well as the BBW. When the house is built, it has a driveway attached to the garage, but about halfway between the house and the stream, there was another driveway parking area created. So in between the house and that second parking lot is where we're planning on putting the proposed pool. To the north of that, I would call it the lower parking lot, is a woodland that it has the 50-foot buffer zone from the wetlands. And then between the 100-foot riverfront and the 200-foot riverfront is where we're planning on putting the pool. It's an existing lawn area. Their septic system is in the backyard as well. So we're holding the pool to the minimum 20 feet from the septic system and 10 feet from the existing deck. as required by the zoning bylaw for construction. And the pool itself is 18 by 36, and they are planning a stamped concrete patio around it that is 36 by 54. Due to the sloping towards Riverside Terrace, or to the west, as well as towards the stream itself, we're not planning on any grading. It'll be the pool will be out of the ground about a foot and a half on the western edge, which is parallel to Riverside Terrace. And we'll slope it at a minimum slope, 1/4 inch per foot from the deck towards the north end of the patio. And we proposed a 2 foot wide, 2 foot deep stone line trench at the northern edge of the patio. So when the water runs off, it'll infiltrate into the ground before running down to the wetland resource areas across the pavement. So hoping to infiltrate and slow down the runoff before it gets to that area. The lower driveway does pitch towards the stream as well as towards Riverside Terrace, but it does have quite a pitch. So we're trying to slow down the runoff from getting to that pavement. There's a small apple tree that we're showing. That's the only tree that we're calling to be removed. The rest of it is in the lawn. They've had to prune that tree several times and don't feel that it's worth saving. But the other trees and the landscaped area will remain as it is. The fencing will just be in between the pool and the landscaped area. Have any questions?
Jennifer?
I'm just noting that the permit is under the bylaw only. It's out of jurisdiction for Wetland Protection Act. Craig, you mentioned that there's grading on the property, but there's no grading shown on the plan and it's not stamped by an engineer.
No, we're not calling for any grading. It'll be a vertical wall below the patio. So the patio will just sit 1.5 feet higher than the existing lawn in the area west of the existing deck. That's where it starts to drop off towards Riverside Terrace.
Can you point that out on the plan for people?
Yeah, if you can, you see the cursor? So
Yep.
the western edge of the patio, right there is where the existing lawn meets the existing mulched landscape area. So we went over it with the client
Okay,
last week. We ended up moving the pool further to the east to make it less of a, have it out of the ground less than it would have been if we had left it where it was before. And also to
Okay.
preserve the existing landscape area.
okay, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I think the other thing to note, just from my standpoint, is that it, Jennifer?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. The other thing to note is that the applicant is proposing a filter cartridge system. Is that correct?
Yes,
So that's the one that's least impactful on the environment because there's no backwashing or anything. It's just a
correct.
filter changing of the filter. So I just want to note that for the record. So I don't have any further questions. Anybody on the commission have questions before I go to public comment?
For me.
No.
Okay, so no comments from the commission. Any public comment? 56 Cosmo Road. Just raise your hand or put something in the chat asking to be recognized. Okay, so seeing none, Craig, I assume we want to close.
yes, that would be what we would be asking.
Motion to close 56 Cosmo Road.
Spady, a second.
So Caulfield, Spady, a second. Roll call vote. Caulfield's aye.
Vincent, I.
Carol, I.
Crossman, I.
Spady, aye.
Okay, 5-0, close. Make a motion to issue a notice of permit for work and order of conditions for 56 Cosmo Road.
Carol, second.
Just the permit for work.
Let me remake the motion here. So make a motion to issue a permit for work for 56 Cosmo Road.
Carol, second.
Caulfield's Carol second. Roll call vote. Caulfield's aye.
Benson, I.
Carol, I.
Crossman, I.
Speedy, aye.
Fair enough, Greg.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
See you in 2 weeks.
Okay, so now up is 639 Turnpike Street, which is a notice of intent for an upgrade to a residential septic system. And this is a Collins project. So we have Peter Line.
What's up, everybody?
Hey, Peter.
You cut out quick, but 639 is up first. You want me to pull that up?
639 Turnpike. Yep, that'd be great. You just introduce yourself for the record.
Yep. For the record, Peter Lyons with Collins Civil Engineering Group, representing our applicant and owner at 639 Turnpike Street for a notice of intent for the repair of a failed on-site septic system. It is an existing, it's an existing 3-bedroom home. We have a BVW line across the backyard and an isolated wetland line flagged 1 through 5 in the southern corner of the front yard. The 50-foot buffers come up towards the house and right along the edge of the proposed septic system. In order to maintain the required distances off the house, we are as close as 61 feet to the closest corner of the leaching field. We've proposed erosion control as the Avon's sedimentation control details shown on the lower portion of the plan. That's going to start at the garage and wrap around all of the proposed work, including a new septic tank, leaching field, and associated grading. It will not be a pump system, but we will end up with some slope coming off the edge due to the high groundwater. The erosion control should protect the resources. The area is all an existing cleared lawn. I don't believe there are any trees coming down. And we're proposing conservation posts. I don't know why our tree line isn't showing up on this plan, but I would imagine the conservation posts are right along the existing tree line, ending towards flag 4 in the back of the property. That's about it. We show a soil stockpile area out in front in the driveway that is outside of the 100-foot buffer. I'll take any questions now. Thank you.
Jennifer?
Peter, just talk about Wetland Note 11, please.
Wetland Note 11. Regarding the isolated area of wetlands in the front yard, there are some branches and logs that have been disposed of in that area. Note 11 says branches and logs in isolated wetland to be removed and properly disposed of. So that is our added note, and I believe the only comment from the staff report.
Right, and just that there's a potential vernal pool within, it's more than 200 feet away, and so it meets Title V and Wetland Protection Act. So those are all my comments. Thank you.
So Peter, what's the elevation here of the field?
Sure, I can zoom in a little bit.
I think it's 78.3, which is.
Yeah, so we have 79 as our high point. That's over the top of the tank. And then we slope down to an existing grade of 75 at the lowest corner. So it's about a 4-foot grade coming off of the leaching field, and then you add another foot over the tank.
Okay. Any comments from the commission? Seeing none, any public comment, 639 Turnpike Street. Okay. Mr. Bremser, I need you to identify yourself, so I'm happy to recognize you, or if you want to tell me who you are so that I can recognize you for the record. I guess I am. I know, just for the record, I need to recognize you and know you know where you live. So if you can give me your address, that'd be great. And then I'll read the comment into the record. Nope, I can't hear you. I can recognize you so you can hear. So here we go. So Mr. Bremser, you can unmute yourself and turn on your video and then identify yourself.
No, I'm on for a later hearing, but I just I'm a land surveyor, and I just noticed there was no land surveyor stamp on the plan, but it shows a distance to a property line.
So Jennifer, do you have any comment to that? It's signed by I got a stamp from a professional engineer here.
They do have different jobs. So Peter, is that something you guys can add to the plan?
I mean, typically we don't. I mean, we do 200 of these a year, and of course, we're going to dimension to the property line to show. Title 5 only requires 10 feet, so we just need to show that there's adequate separation to the property line. I mean, this isn't a building permit plan or anything. I don't think that's really justified. Like I said, we do 200 of these a year, and no one ever had that comment.
You're doing the grading portion of that, which is what a professional engineer stamp will allow you to do. It doesn't allow you to verify the property line. And I think his comment is saying that you just need the registered land surveyor who verifies the property line. And that stamp does not allow grading. So they're two totally different jobs. I think that's the point he was making.
But if you go to the Board of Registration webpage, there's an explanation of what land surveyors do and what civil engineers do. But anytime you show a distance to a property line, there's supposed to be a land surveyor stamp on the plan.
So, Mr. Bremser, I am going to have to ask you to identify yourself for the record, just so I know who you are other than your name.
Oh, sure. My name's Dan Bremser. I'm president of the Mass Association of Land Surveyors and Civil Engineers. I'm on for a later hearing, but it's just a pet peeve of mine when I see engineers stamping plans that they're not supposed to be stamping. If they have a PLS, the PLS should be stamping it also.
Okay. Jennifer, any suggestion on how to proceed here? I mean, I've probably seen, my 5 years.
We've had this conversation on several other permits.
We've had it on the flip side. We haven't had it on this side of this, right? We've had land surveyors stamping plans that had grading on them.
Correct. Yeah. And in that case, the commission has told them that they do need to have both stamps on the plan.
Peter, do you have a PLS on staff at Civil, Colin?
Yes. Yep, we do.
Okay, so we can condition that? Is that something that, well, I guess we'll see. Okay, thank you, Mr. Bremser, I appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm sorry, it's just just a point of information I wanted to pass along.
Very good. Okay, any comments from the commission? Is there any further comment from the public? 639 Turnpike. Okay, so Peter, I assume we want to close.
Yes, please.
I'll make a motion to close 639 Turnpike Street.
Spady, second.
Caulfield Spady is second. Roll call vote. Caulfield's aye.
Benson, I.
Carol, I.
Crossman, I.
Spady, aye.
5-0. Any discussion about what we want to do here on the order of conditions? I mean, we can condition delivering a set of plans that has a land surveyor's stamp on it.
What's the, do we have, what is the rule? I mean, do we, now that it's been requested, and it seems like something needs, do we have to go through with it, or we decide to just leave the engineer stamp on it? What are the protocols?
I think Jennifer's telling us that from our perspective, that in order to be consistent here, that we should have a land surveyor stamp on this.
It really shouldn't be an issue. They have somebody on staff who's probably done the survey work first.
Yeah.
It's not difficult to have that person stamp the plan.
Okay.
Can be conditioned.
Make a motion to issue a permit for work and order conditions, noting that we need a new set of revised plans with the land surveyor stamp on it, including the land surveyor stamp in addition to the professional engineer.
Spady, second.
Caulfield Spady is second. Roll call vote. Caulfield's aye.
Benson, I.
Carol, I.
Crossman, I.
Spady, aye.
Okay, thank you. Next up is 423 Turnpike Street. This is a notice of intent for an upgrade to a septic system.
This one's me also. For the record, again, Peter Lyons with Collins Civil Engineering Group, representing the homeowner. Notice of intent for an existing failed 3-bedroom home on Turnpike Street. We have multiple BVW lines shown on the plan that are off-site. The 50-foot buffer falls outside of the property line. The 100-foot buffer basically bisects our 9,000 square foot locust lot. We also have potential vernal pool shown to the south off-site. And this is the 100-foot to the potential vernal pool, and the 200-foot falling on the other side of the lot. So our proposal is to replace the existing leaching components in the back of the house and provide a gravity system with a 1,500 gallon septic tank to a 14 by 32 pipe and stone field. There will be minimal grading changes associated with this project. There will be some trees removed approximately at the 100-foot buffer. You can see we've done everything we can to maximize our distance away from the resources while also maintaining the separation of 10 feet to the lot lines. I'm sure it's going to be the same case as the other one, but we show 15 feet off the lot. Soil stockpile area is really the only place we could put it. We have utilities and overhead wires out front. So our stockpile area is at approximately the 100-foot buffer, or the 100-foot limit to the potential vernal pool. That's about it. Erosion control on this one, or sedimentation control, is basically paralleling the property line, encompassing all of the site access as well as the proposed septic system. We show 5 conservation posts along the existing tree line to the south and along the property line and in the rear. Conservation boasts details as well as all of our standard sediment control details and wetland notes are on the plan. The plan has been revised to show note 12 requiring the removal of a brush pile near flags 1 and 2. That note has also been added on the plan. Any questions from the commission?
Jennifer?
Peter got all of it. It's more than 100 feet from the potential vernal pool, so he meets Title 5 and Wetland Protection Act. So no other comments from me. Thanks.
Okay. This area to the south of the property, is that their property or someone else's property?
It is someone else's property. Jen, you may know more than me, but I think there was this the one where there was a concern from the applicant removing the debris because it was offsite? I wasn't involved in any of those conversations, but.
Not sure I recall that. But
Okay, yeah.
it's like a wheelbarrow. That's it. There's not
Okay.
much there. It's a small amount.
Okay.
Okay. Any other comments from or questions from the commission? Any public comment for 423 Turnpike Street?
I'm gonna guess it's the same comment from the last hearing about the property line.
Oh yeah, I got it covered.
Yeah.
Already looked. Okay, so we want to close, Peter.
Yes, please.
A motion to close 423 Turnpike Street.
second,
Caulfield's Benson second. Roll call vote. Caulfield's aye.
Benson, I.
Carroll, I.
Rossman, aye.
Spady, aye.
5-0 to close. Make a motion to issue a permit for work order conditions noting that we need a revised plan with a professional land surveyor stamp included.
Spady, second.
Caulfield, Spady, second. Roll call vote. Caulfield's aye.
Benson, I.
Carroll, I.
Rossman, aye.
Spady, aye.
5-0. Okay. I think that's it, Peter.
All right, that's all I've got for you. We'll get those stamped and revised and sent back in. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Peter. So next up, remember we're taking 530, 550 Turnpike Street out of order. 530, 550 Turnpike Street. This is a notice of intent for development of a 101,000 square foot industrial warehouse, accessory offices, and all pertinences, as well as demolition of existing site structures and infrastructure. Sorry, I'm just taking care of some. Is PK Boston Law the representative here? I have John O'Leary. Maybe he can tell me. Mr. O'Leary, are you the representative or the applicant, or you can tell me who the representative is? You can unmute yourself, turn on your video.
Unmuted. My apologies to everyone. Good evening. Yes, I am the project applicant, and I have a few other members of my project team with me here this evening. I'd love if they could get joined in. It is PK, Boston Law, Mackenzie Engineering, Austin Chartier, and Scott Morrison from Ecotech Inc. So I think the three of them should be available.
Okay, so I got Ecotech, I got PK Boston Law, and who else?
Mackenzie Engineering, Austin Chartier.
Yeah, got Got them?
Awesome. That should round out our project team here this evening. And if you wouldn't mind, Mr. Chairman, I have some presentation slides I'd love to share my screen here if that's possible.
Sure. Just one thing I think before we get started here, and then we can talk about the project, because I know we do want to get an introduction to this project at the very least. So the agent hasn't had a chance to inspect the property, right, because of the ongoing business activity on the property. And so what are the plans to allow the agent during normal working hours to make a site inspection of the property so she can get out and see all the wetlands that are actually delineated on this property?
Yeah, absolutely. So for the record, John O'Leary, project proponent, Austin Chartier from McKenzie Engineering, our site civil, our wetland scientist, Scott Morrison from Ecotech, and Rob Pellegrini from PK Boston Law, our local counsel on the project. I believe, and correct me if I'm misspeaking here, Austin, but you and Jennifer have scheduled a meeting for a site walk for tomorrow morning, I believe at 8 a.m. The operations of the driving range don't open until 9 a.m. So I think we'll have a 1 hour window there where we won't be in range.
So to
Yes, thank you.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that we addressed that because that was an issue that did come up. So, okay, so you can share your screen, do whatever presentation you want, and then we can go from there.
Awesome. So I have some presentation slides here. Can you guys see screen number 1 there? Do you see the regular? I guess
No.
That's not showing the. I apologize about this. Let's see.
Just for the record, before as Mr. O'Leary is bringing this up, we did do an ANRAD on this property a year and a half, 2 years ago. And at that time, the wetlands were delineated. So I do want to put that on the record. I'm sure Mr. O'Leary would tell me that at some point.
Yes. So for some reason, it's only just showing not the presentation slides, but just this general slideshow here. If this works for you guys, I'm just going to go from here.
We can't see anything. There we go. Now we're starting. There you go.
Now we're starting. And what are we looking at here? Are we looking at Google Maps? I apologize about that.
I got a slide deck up. So
slide deck. All right, perfect. How about now? Are we looking at a full slide deck?
Yeah, I mean, I see the first slide. I see
Okay.
PowerPoint open or whatever you're using. So.
Okay, awesome. I will turn it over to Rob Pellegrini, who's just going to kick things off here for us and introduce the project.
Great.
Good evening, everybody. Rob Pellegrini from PK Boston Law. Just a quick timeline is we attended design review on April 6th. The application was on May 16th. This project, as you mentioned, is 530 and 550 Turnpike Street. It's owned by Easton Golf Land. Real quick, you're mostly going to be hearing, I think, from John O'Leary, the project proponent. He's with Rhino Easton Development, LLC. We also have Austin Chartier with McKenzie Engineering Group, who can walk you through some of the plans. And then we have Scott Morrison from Ecotech, who's a wetland scientist, as you probably know. So he can get more into the weeds, pun intended. So with that, I'll turn it straight over to John.
Unmute. Rob, thanks for that. Just as a little overview here, we're looking at 530 and 550 Turnpike Street, comprised of 2 separate parcels, totaling, as outlined in the blue, totaling roughly 79 acres. About 50 acres of that total parcel area is existing wetlands, which is roughly 62% of total acreage. 72 of those 71 acres actually falls within a priority habitat species, which is the green hashed outline that you see here. So this is
John, real quick. Yeah, I don't think your slideshow is playing. It's just looking at the actual PowerPoint.
Oh, I apologize. Are we looking
Yeah,
at
so
this
if
slide
you-
here?
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, great. I apologize about that. There we go. So I wonder why it's not. I have it up on my. Anyway, we'll just go with this way. I apologize here, guys. Yeah, so 530, 550 Turnpike Street. For those who don't know, we're located about half mile from the intersection of 106 and 138, and then another mile from the intersection of Route 24 and 106. Again, roughly 79 acres, 49 of which are wetland area, 72 of which fall within the priority habitat area. So that's the hatched green line that you see outlined on this project. The blue line is the total area of both properties. Our proposed project will occur entirely within or outside of the priority habitat area. So it's going to be occurring on less than 10% of the total acreage of the property. We do have some proposed work that's within that priority habitat area, but it is for restoration and renaturalization, which we will kind of get into, and Scott will speak to as we sort of get through this a little bit here. So existing conditions of the site. Site is currently improved by a driving range, as we sort of discussed already, as well as a few structures, a pro shop, teaching facility, a maintenance shed, batting cages, a mini golf course, a snack shack, as well as the associated parking that goes along with it. Roughly 181 existing parking spaces and 4.5 or so acres of impervious area as it exists today. I'll turn it over to Austin to discuss our proposed conditions.
Thanks, John. For the record, Austin Chartier with McKenzie Engineering Group. We prepared this land survey and civil engineering services. We filed the notice of intent with the commission May 18th, as Attorney Pellegrini mentioned. And as the chairman alluded to, there was an ORAD issued on this property. It was issued May 6, 2020. So it's got still another year on it in terms of validity. Just a few things to note on that ORAD. It was flagged by Brad Holmes of Environmental Consulting and Restoration. The majority of the resource flagged was bordering vegetated wetland, which really encompasses basically both the east and west side of the site, if you're looking at it, along the driving range and along the rear of the parking lot to the north or right, looking at the page. John mentioned it is within the natural heritage endangered species. As part of our filing, we did file with MESA. We submitted the NOI to them, so it is being reviewed on their end. There was some potential vernal pools that were flagged in the rear of the site. Thankfully, it's away from our limit of work, so we don't really get too much into that in terms of the proposed site. I guess I can, from that, so I'll just talk about a little bit what they're proposing. The two driveways you see here kind of mimic what's out there today. They're proposing the 101,000 square foot warehouse facility. On the right side of the screen will be the parking, and basically for employees, day-to-day employees. There's a small office portion to the development. And then on the left side will be the delivery vehicles and trash trucks and maintenance and utilities and that sort of stuff. So kind of separates the two of them. Our main goal here was to basically stay outside of the 50-foot buffer zone, restore what's in that to impervious, and upgrade the existing stormwater. There is infrastructure on site, but it's substandard. So we're proposing 109 parking spaces. That's right on what's required based on the parking regulations and the Easton bylaws. We think that'll be, excessive, but so that's why we're coming in right at what's required. We didn't want to provide an excess of spaces that are unnecessary. The 7 loading docks are, I think, 2 more than what's required based on square footage. And then they're also proposing 7 trailer storage spaces in the rear there. The existing site, yeah, as he mentioned, the actual disturbed footprint of the site today is about 18.5 acres. Our proposed footprint is going to be about 6.8 acres. And we are proposing a slight increase in impervious, which stems from the building. It's a decrease in parking lot coverage, but the building itself is really where the increase is. But we're really tightening up the footprint of the disturbed area, and Scott Morrison will get into the restoration plan a little bit more. Next slide. Yeah, so the stormwater management, I just wanted to quickly touch on this. The grayed out area on the bottom right here, where you can see the buffer zone around that, that's the existing stormwater basin. And essentially what happens on site today is there's a series of catch basins that flow directly into this stormwater basin. And it's a dry basin. There is an outlet on the bottom. For our design, this is now, because it was built prior to 1996, it is a bordering vegetated wetland because it's connected out to the other flags. So it kind of helped us in our design where we're able to look at that as, the focal design point kind of. So it's a fully compliant stormwater system. Both the Easton, basically the requirements state that you got to comply with stormwater management regulations. So we fully comply with those. There's no new untreated discharges. We're actually making use of the existing outlet pipes, or I guess the existing inlet pipes into that basin, as we're going to use those as the outlets of our basin. So it'll be fully treated. The peak rate attenuation, we are reducing it in all storms up to and including the 100-year storm event. And that was not basically the determining design factor. The design factor was water quality volume. So that was really the restricting factor. So we decreased it, I think, some 40%, even in the 100-year storm. Groundwater recharge volume, that's just a calculation based on soils that we encountered out here. We've done about 3 days of soil testing, and we did find actually pretty good material in this area, loamy sand material. So groundwater recharge volumes met, water quality volumes met as well. That's just the increase in impervious with the large structure of the warehouse building. But we're meeting that. Land use with higher pollutant loads, that's not applicable. The use we're proposing, warehouse and office space, are not land uses that applies to. Critical areas. So we are located within the Hockomock Swamp critical area. This standard essentially says within the wetland bylaw for the town of Easton that we basically it triggers a MEPA filing. So we had a preliminary MEPA meeting in May with the Mass DEP, and that's going to be filed with them in the coming weeks. But essentially, it just says you need to meet stormwater management standards, which we will. Redevelopment projects, we were hoping we'd qualify under that, but because we have the increased impervious area, it's not a redevelopment project. The construction period, pollution prevention, we are disturbing over an acre, so we will be filing a NIPD SWIP permit. One of the comments in the staff report we received was that we should complete a draft SWIP. So we're in the process of doing that. But to points 8 and 9, we did submit construction phase and long-term operation and maintenance plans in the stormwater report, which are being reviewed as well. And then the illicit discharge, we did there's no illicit discharges that we found out here. And we will be submitting an illicit discharge statement as part of this work. Next slide. John, I think you and Scott might speak to this a little, or?
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. Thank you for that. Scott, I don't know if you want to jump in here. A big part of this project, and one of the reasons that we thought this was a really great opportunity, was because of the existing impact to the wetland areas and the buffer zones compared to our proposed impact, as well as the restoration that we're proposing in the driving range area as part of this project. So I'll let Scott get into the details because he can certainly speak to it far better than I can.
Thanks, John. Just for the record, Scott Morrison from Ecotech. So the existing conditions, impervious between 50 and 100 foot buffer zone, there's about 24,756 square feet. Under proposed conditions, that will be reduced to 13,595 square feet. And currently, in the existing condition, there's 18,285 square feet of impervious between the 0 and 50 foot. And under the proposed conditions, that's 0. So within the 100 foot buffer zone, there's a reduction of about 30,000 square feet of impervious within the buffer zones itself. So it's a significant reduction. And if we can kind of go to the next slide, we can kind of talk about the mitigation areas. So if you look at this slide, you can see the areas in the orange and red where you've got impacts within the 100 foot buffer zone. The area to the south of that, highlighted in green, is an area of about 8 acres that's proposed for renaturalization. We had met with Natural Heritage early on to discuss the project and kind of implement any concerns or suggestions that they had. And what we came up with, we've got about 8 acres of mowed and maintained turf, which is part of the driving range. So that will be restored by planting native saplings throughout that area. We've proposed 100 of those scattered throughout that area. The other important, probably the most important part, is there's large fencing along the eastern and western sides of the driving range. So it goes from the ground, and it's probably about 30 or 40 feet high in places. So as part of the project, that will be removed. So what that'll do is kind of eliminate those wildlife barriers and kind of connect the larger wetlands to the east and west. We're also proposing, at Natural Heritage's request, a 2-year invasive species mitigation kind of treatment. And so we treat in the late spring and again in the fall to try and make sure that as we're replanting and colonizing this area to kind of restore it, that any invasive species are treated to try and prevent them from colonizing in the area. So the project's entirely within the Hockomock Swamp, ACEC, and estimated priority habitat. So there's 5 listed species within the area. So we're working again with Natural Heritage to come up with the best species to plant within this area to provide that restoration. So at the end of the day, this project will provide 8 acres of additional habitat within the estimated priority habitat, and it will also provide some significant connections, whereas right now there's fencing and the driving range that's kind of directly in between the 2 large wetland systems. So as a project team, we're really excited about this project. It's not every day that we can provide more mitigation than we're actually proposing for, so there's more mitigation than the actual size of the project. So the size of the project is about 6.8 acres, and the mitigation that's being proposed is about 8 acres. So we're really excited about it. I think it's a really good project, and I'd be happy to answer questions. Kind of go through kind of the next slide of what we'd expect things to look like. So we've kind of provided some photographs of the plantings that we're proposing, which will include gray birch, white pine, red maple, and red oak, all species that grow currently in the area, all native species. And we think it's going to be a real improvement. And this is kind of a photo of what we'd expect the area to look like in the years in the future after the area is replanted. So again, we're excited about this project, and I think it's a kind of a win-win. So there's significant wildlife and habitat benefits to this project. I guess at this point, we can kind of ask if the commission has any follow-up discussions or questions for any of the project team. I know that there's some review that's still ongoing, but we'd be happy to answer questions. And if we can't answer tonight, we'd be glad to come back with additional responses.
Could you give us an indication of what size the plantings will be?
Yeah, we specified, I believe 6 to 8 foot height saplings. I think there was some comments from Ms. Carlino in her review letter, and we're looking into potentially adding some shrubs into that as well.
So, Jennifer, before we go to commission members' questions, do you have any comments for us?
And they have a long list of some comments on the plans and the other documents that they provided, but I think most of them are easily addressed. The stormwater review, we requested the quote at least a week ago, and we followed up again today, looking for that quote for them. Those were really the main issues, and so I didn't realize there were 5 species there. So if the shrubs don't make sense with natural heritage, then obviously don't propose them.
Okay.
Just one question. Do we have can we display a plan, or I could look it up and display the plan of the proposed building and parking lots compared to the wetland boundaries and the buffer zone boundaries? Because that's the one plan I didn't see here. I know it wasn't in the presentation, but if it's in your document somewhere, if we could just.
I should be able to pull up.
You guys are proposing a substantial improvement over existing conditions. And so I want that to be visible on a plan. You know what I mean? It's slightly unusual for us to actually get a plan to come to us that is an improvement, at least in the buffer zones, to do so. So I want to see it.
Yes. Hold on.
Sometimes when you get a unicorn in front of you, you got to take a look. So. Yeah.
Austin, I don't know if you have one that's readily available. I have one up here in front of me that might work.
Yeah, there's a lot going on the plan, so I think just the site plan should be fine.
Yeah, I have the utility. If you want to drive the bus, go for it. If you have one readily available. I had the utility plan pulled up. I thought that was at least busy, I should say.
Yeah, I know it gets tough with these big projects to find one plan that we can see what we want to see. So. I mean, certainly while Austin's looking for that, I think that the fact that we're moving the disturbance all the way up to the road side of things is far away from the wetland areas and off to the stuff on the north side of the property. That's all. That's bordering vegetated wetland doesn't even describe what that could possibly be. I mean, that is a swamp with a river going through it and everything else.
So can you guys see here?
Yeah.
So there's a lot going on, but so this is the existing clubhouse down here.
Yeah, good.
Kind of the limit of our work almost. So this is the clubhouse. You got your driving range is down in this area.
Yep.
Driving range structure here, which is basically the existing stormwater basins on the back side of that. And then you get up into your batting cage here, which is, maybe 20 feet from your wetland here. So this is your batting cage. I do have some good ones that
yeah, so just let me sort of, for the members of the commission and any public, so the bottom line here, and the one that's on the ropes, you lost us there. The one on the right side here, that's the wetland line. Okay, so that's a bordering vegetated wetland. Then the first line is a 50-foot buffer, and then above it is going to be is the 100-foot. So you're talking about. Oh, you lost me.
Sorry.
Okay.
You still see that, or?
Yep. So I mean, I think that where you had your cursor over there on the part of the parking lot. So that part of the parking lot's in the 100-foot, not the existing condition, but proposed. Yep.
Yep. So this, a portion of that is basically up to the 50, but it is within the 50 to 100.
Right. And then a corner of the building is outside the 50, but within the 100.
It is, yes. And that is the, it's really this basin is putting that.
Yeah, I mean, Jennifer and I had a conversation last week. Basically, said that this stormwater feature turned into a bordering vegetated wetland. So that's
right.
We noted that when we did the ORAD. So, but it happens. It's what we have to deal with. So,
yep.
Anybody else have any questions from the commission before we go to the public?
I'm just happy to finally
sorry.
see the. Oh, sorry. Yeah, you can go.
No. I was just curious if there was any other considerations that had to be made because it's in the Hockomock Swamp area. But I mean, it sounds like it was covered. I was just curious if anything else had to be considered because it's such a protected site.
So you guys are waiting to hear back from Natural Heritage on this, right?
Correct.
So do we have a time frame on that?
There's a 30-day review procedure, so we'd expect to hear back from them in 30 days. Okay. So my guess would be next week or two, we'd definitely hear back from them.
Okay. So Natural Heritage will give us some insight into whether or not the proposed activity is impactful on those species in the ACEC and in the rare species habitat, obviously. So that'll be a big impact. I mean, certainly what they're proposing to convert eight acres to naturalized, area again is a benefit. Just has to be done right and whatnot. So.
Yep, and one thing to keep in mind is that the mitigation is driven from having a pre-filing consultation with Natural Heritage. So what we're proposing is what we discussed. So we don't anticipate any major changes.
Right. Good. Any other comments? Mike, you had something?
No, I was just saying it's nice to maybe finally see that fairway go away. I've been looking at that gap for years thinking, oh my God, this needs to go. So it's great.
Ben or Al?
Nothing for me.
Al, any further questions?
All set. Thank you.
Yeah, so I think from our standpoint, the SWIP plan, the Natural Heritage review, those are things we're going to need here. Obviously, we'll have to have stormwater peer reviewed, but I, from the project itself, unless something comes up on the Natural Heritage side of things, I'm pretty satisfied with what's here. It looks like it's a good project, and certainly makes sense from a conservation permitting standpoint. So, let alone all the other permitting that has to go on with this project. So, I'm appreciative of that.
One question, if you wouldn't mind, Mr. Chairman. We did receive comments back from the Planning and Zoning Board just earlier today, or maybe it was late last week, that identified that Woodard and Curran would be doing a stormwater management review through that permitting process. I just wanted to make sure that we're not duplicating efforts as it relates to that. I don't know if whose jurisdiction potentially it falls within. I know different municipalities operate different ways, so I just wanted to get some clarity on that and make sure we're all on the same page there.
So, I mean, I've never seen us do two separate ones, but Jennifer, you tell me.
It's the same one. I'm coordinating those now.
Got it. Okay, great. Sorry, I just wanted to make sure we're on the same page.
Yeah, we try and consolidate those the best we possibly can. Even if we had something special on ours, we'd piggyback it on theirs, so you're not paying the overhead and what's going on. So
makes sense. Thank you.
Okay, so when are we going to continue to? Jennifer, do you have a suggestion, or the applicant? Remember, realizing that we have to have all the material at least a week in advance of the meeting in order for us to have enough time to review it for the meeting. So we have
June 27 or July 11?
I think it would be best on our end, and I don't want to speak entirely for our project team, but I would love to, keep the train rolling here and try to get on that June 27th hearing to get in prior to the July 4th holiday if possible. With that date in mind, we'll get you guys comments no later than, June 20th, if that works with you guys. I know we're already drafting things like that. Maybe the only outstanding item would be the natural heritage letter. But if we can address a number of these other comments, I think that's achievable on our end.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the only thing that's going to make or break that for you guys out of your control is natural heritage.
Exactly. So again, if we can get all of the comments to you guys and have a discussion again on the 27th, and then the only outstanding item is hearing back from natural heritage, I still think that's an evening well spent for us. So
okay. So before we go on here, I just want to make sure we have any public comment for 530, 550 Turnpike Street. Any public comment? Raise your hand or tell me in the chat box you want to be recognized. A lot of people in the audience tonight. So seeing none, make a motion to continue 530, 550 Turnpike Street to our next meeting on June 27th.
Spady, second.
Caulfield's Spady, second. Roll call vote. Caulfield's aye.
Vincent, I.
Carol, I.
Crossman, aye.
Spady, aye.
Thank you, guys.
thank you for your time.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, so we are going to, if somebody could help me demote some people, that would be good. Next up is 534 Washington Street. This is a notice of intent for building additions, loading docks, increased pavement and parking, and modification of a bioretention basin at 534 Washington Street. And see who the representative. Brad or somebody else? I don't know who's representing Holmgren. Rogers.
They may be before the planning board tonight, so they may not be finished yet.
No, he's here. He was just all the way down the bottom. Okay. I thought I was scrolling to the bottom. My trusty sidekick and Tish pointed out to me. Thank you, Tish. So Scott, you are up, and
I assume you can hear me?
We can hear you. We cannot see you. So if you could turn on your video, that would help us a lot. There we go.
There you go. Good evening. For the record, my name's Scott Rogers from J.K. Holmgren Engineering. With me tonight, I believe, is Eric Miller, the president of the organization.
Do I need to bring Eric up, or are we good?
I would bring him up, if you don't mind.
Here he comes. Okay, Scott, you're
okay,
up.
My Brother's Keeper is a nonprofit Christian ministry that serves families and provides food and also furniture. This organization is also run through private donations and does not receive any financial benefit from the government. So can I bring up my set of plans?
Sure, yep.
So you can see on the existing conditions plan.
Yeah, we can't. You need to share your screen there, Scott.
Hold on one second. Can you see it now?
Absolutely, yep.
Okay. So you can see on the existing conditions plan, on the east side of the property, there is a bordering vegetated wetland on the top of my sheet. And the existing pavement line, if you will, is about 60 feet from that BVW. It's also about 15 feet from basically a stormwater basin that's a man-made basin, but now considered a wetland. That shows up in green. So we are proposing a couple additions to the existing building. One in the back, which is a proposed exterior cooler, as well as on the northern side of the site, there's a proposed warehouse addition with loading docks. So essentially, the circulation for the site starts at Washington Street and proceeds in a easterly direction around towards the back of the property, and then heads back towards Washington Street. There is a small overflow parking area on the north side that was brought before the town, I believe back in 2019, and that also went before the commission and was approved and constructed. So due to the fact that we need circulation around the entire building, the edge of pavement, if you will, has been kind of pushed out towards the north and widened. So we needed to get, trucks around to that to access the loading areas, as well as, an Easton fire truck around the site for, safety purposes. In the rear also, we are proposing a new trash enclosure area. There's one that exists now, but this particular facility uses quite a bit, or has quite a bit of cardboard brought. So there's a big recycling trash enclosure area that needs to be provided as well. So as far as stormwater improvements, currently the site has 3 existing stormwater facilities, if you will. One would be an underground infiltration system on the north side where that overflow parking area exists. Again, that was, proposed back in 2019 and installed. That would be the first one. The second one is a small bioretention area, which is located between that overflow parking area and the existing building and the proposed addition as far as the warehouse and loading dock area. That particular bioretention area is going to be improved to have a new sediment forebay rebuilt into it. There's a little bit of a grading challenge there that we need to do in order to make that happen, but that's definitely going to happen with this procedure. And then there is, as I mentioned before, the existing retention area on the eastern side adjacent to the BVW. And that stormwater basin will actually receive less stormwater under the proposed condition than it currently gets. So there's a improvement to stormwater peak runoff rates, as well as the runoff volumes there. And then lastly, there is a new infiltration basin that's proposed on the western side of that warehouse addition, which basically handles the small area of pavement for the loading dock itself. The loading dock's in that concrete and bituminous concrete paved area. So with the, and obviously we have a drainage report that we submitted with this. So with those improvements that we've made, there'll be improved groundwater recharge as well as improved stormwater quality on site. One of the relatively small improvements to utilities out there is in the rear of the site, there's a sewer connection to a existing force main that actually goes out to Stone Hill College. So we're making some minor modifications and improvements to that system there. Then we did provide an erosion and sediment control plan as well. We are providing an proposed construction exit, which is shown in this area right here. We are providing silt dock that basically encompasses the existing and proposed pavement edge on the eastern side up against the existing stormwater basin, and also some small areas of silt sock around that bioretention area as well. We also are providing silt sacks within the existing catch basins to provide, to not allow the existing system to get sediment or, corrupted, if that's the right word to use there. We also have provided a landscape development plan we are proposing some new trees and shrubs on site. And we are proposing, planting within that new bioretention area in sediment forebay, which is located in this area. And we're providing some buffer zone enhancement as well. So this project, and Jen can probably speak to this in better detail, but this project is going out or has gone out for stormwater peer review. We did submit to Planning and Zoning Board as well, I think prior to submitting to Conservation Commission by maybe a week or so, but that hearing that was scheduled for this evening has been postponed to 6:20 for Planning and Zoning Board. And finally, we did receive some comments from the conservation agent, which we will be addressing in short order as well. So I guess with that, I'll take some questions.
Jennifer?
There were just a few items for them to address on their plans and their application, and just waiting for the stormwater review on our end.
Okay, so from my perspective, do we have a table anywhere in the plans or in the other documents that demonstrates the change in disturbance in both the no disturb zone and the 50 to 100 buffer zone?
I don't have those, but I can still provide those to you.
Yeah, man, I'd like to understand the change. I mean, I know we're trying to mitigate it through stormwater protection and whatnot, but I'd like to understand what the change is.
Understood.
Any other questions from the commission? Any public comment for 534 Washington Street? Okay, so seeing none, when do you want to continue till?
Jen, do you have an idea of when that peer review quote would be coming in? Just trying to figure out if that's coming this week, next week, if we even know.
I don't. I requested it on 5/31, so we followed up today with an email, and hopefully we'll have those very soon.
Okay.
The quote anyway.
If you don't mind, if we could put it on for June 27th, and I suppose if we need to continue, we certainly will, but that'll give us, I guess, 3 weeks or 2 weeks to get it filed.
2 weeks to get it to us, right?
Yeah.
It's just something just came to my head when I was sitting here thinking about this, but hopefully. So you have not been before planning and zoning, right? So we don't know. I don't know what kind of comments they've got. See, this is this sort of balance we have to play. Is we approve a plan, you go to planning and zoning, and then they start to give you comments, and then we sort of come back and we have to do an amendment to the plan. And so I'm just trying to have some sense of whether they've given you any feedback at all. If they haven't, then if you're going before them on the 20th, then we'll have feedback before the 27th. I'm saying that as sort of a general comment to you as well as the rest of the commission, that I know we're trying to work with planning and zoning to make sure that one of us isn't doing all the work ahead of time to have the other one sort of change. We do the same thing to them. So it's, just something I'm just trying to avoid.
Well, I can tell you that we have met with Stephanie Danielson and I believe Greg Strange as well, the chairman of the Planning and Zoning Board. We did get comments from planning and zoning staff, if you will. So we know what they're looking at. I've also got some comments, a minor comment from the Board of Health as well as the fire department. So it's definitely underway.
Okay. So it just by the time it gets to us on the 27th, I'm hoping we're getting close to a substantially complete plan. So I just want to sort of put that out there. If we're still waiting to hear from planning and zoning, without any feedback from them, then I get a little bit hesitant to sort of say, okay, we're ready to go. So I make a motion to continue 534 Washington to June 27th.
82nd.
Callfeld Spady is second. Roll call vote. Callfeld's aye.
Benson, aye.
Carol, I.
Crossman, aye.
Spady, aye.
Thank you, 5-0. Okay, so we'll see you guys in a few weeks, hopefully.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you very much. We appreciate it. Have a good night.
So next up is 170 Chestnut Street, which we had continued a couple months ago. We did hear from the applicant today, and I believe we're going to push it off to July 11th.
Correct. They did put the topo on the plan as we requested.
Yeah.
And they're waiting for the report from the wetland consultant. So they did ask for a continuance to July 11th.
Okay, so make a motion to continue 170 Chestnut to July 11th.
Second,
Caulfield's Benson was second. Roll call vote. Caulfield's aye.
Benson, I.
Carol, I.
Crossman, aye.
Spady, aye.
5-0. Next up is 91 Union Street, and again we have a continuance here. Jennifer, do we have a time frame on that at this point?
July 11th.
91 Union Street. Make a motion to continue to July 11th.
Spady, second.
Carol.
Nope. Beat you.
Who
Mike
was
wins.
it?
Mike.
Caulfield, Spady, a second. Roll call vote. Caulfield's aye.
Benson, I.
Carol, I.
Crossman, aye.
Spady, aye.
Okay, so everybody take a deep breath now. This next up is 560 Foundry Street. This is a continuation of a notice of intent for roadways, stream crossing pathways, stormwater control, landscaping, grading, utility work, and mitigation areas to support a 46 single-family home lots. Last time they were before us was sometime maybe last summer. We've had some intermittent updates from Michael in the interim, but we really haven't had a presentation of any sort for probably close to a year. So one thing that from a business standpoint here is we only have 3 members qualified to vote, because others have missed more than one meeting on this thing. They just were not members of the commission at the time. So in order for us to get a full commission here, Mike, I don't know if it's been discussed, whether or not we want to sort of roll up the presentation that we might have had prior to this and give some summary so that Mr. Benson and Mr. Crossman are eligible to participate and vote. I don't know if that's been discussed with you, Michael.
It hasn't, but I can try to wing it.
I think that one of the things here from our perspective, I mean, I think we've in detail covered the site conditions, right? And we've talked about site conditions from not only just where the wetlands are, but also soil testing and what went on, especially in the former Foundry site. Because it was obviously a significant amount of testing that went on there to make sure that the project made sense moving forward. I think that's really what we've got. Everything else has been sort of pending presentations from you guys, as well as consultants and reports and whatnot. So, I mean, from my standpoint, we're looking at the site conditions, the issue about stormwater floodplain review, which was long-standing, wildlife habitat, vernal pools, ACECs, rare species stuff that's going on the property. And then I think we get down to waivers and burden of proof and whatnot, and then we get down to our own discussions here about conditions and whatnot. So if we can get to a vote. So does that make sense? I don't know how much of that we can cover tonight. I don't know how much of that. I mean, I know that we only got a lot of material on the 31st. So we're talking that was 6 days ago. So you tell me how much you think we can get covered tonight, how much we can get covered the next meeting, and perhaps the meeting after. I don't know. It's already 8 o'clock here, so.
So I hadn't anticipated this. What I anticipated doing is going through the last items that we've been reviewing with the three of you primarily. I can go into the Wayback Machine if you'd like and kind of run through the project in general. I'm not prepared to go through all of the waiver. We have all the waiver requests filed. We have a lot of materials filed. The last thing we did was we met on, what was it, May 23rd, Jennifer? We met with you and Mark and Stephanie, Lori and I sat in a room and went through Andrea Langhauser's comments. Andrea, the former agent for the commission, was retained after she left to kind of finish up and write her comments down. So that's part of what was submitted a week ago to the commission, were responses to Andrea's comments. I know Jennifer had comments about Riverfront. We've responded to those. Mark had given us a draft of LEC's report on wildlife. We got a final report on that today, and I think we've responded to that through, we did some additional vernal pool surveys out there and did some identification of areas, talked about the soils on the site. So we've got a lot of current information responding to what we thought were the final comments and questions of the commission.
So just understand, as a commission, some of the material certainly hasn't come to us in a public hearing. It's been filed through the
Correct.
through the permitting system, and some of that has been in constant states of flux over time, and that's the nature of this project. It's not a
right.
It's an observation, not a criticism at all. And so I'm just trying to make sure that the commission has the ability and the information to make an appropriate decision here. One of the concerns I have, and if you're not prepared to do it tonight, maybe we just put that part off till next time. As far as reviewing what was already done, is that I don't. The voting on this gets a little difficult if there's only three of us voting. Okay, so from the sense that 2-1 does not carry the vote.
And why is that?
So because the commission members that aren't able to participate, it isn't due to a quorum issue, it's due to not being qualified. We have to still have a majority of the 5 members of the board to carry the vote. So it would have to be 3-0.
I thought you had to have a majority of those that were able to vote.
I think
So-
if it's a quorum issue, that's true. If it's because members aren't qualified to vote, it's 3-0. We actually went through this with council today.
Okay.
So that's part of my concern, and 3-0 might happen. I'm just, it's a bit of a risk on your part to do that.
No, I understand. I'm just trying to get my head around what I need to pull together for next time. I can do a full PowerPoint, kind of going back to the beginning. If you recall, some of the newer commissioners wouldn't know this. This project was filed 3 years ago and wound up withdrawing the original notice of intent because we had a change in commissioners, and refiled because of the change in commissioners. And this current filing's been going on for a couple of years now. I know we met with you, I think, back in December. I'm trying to remember if we met in March or not to kind of update things. So if you'd prefer, I could put together kind of a soup to nuts overview.
I think that would benefit all of us.
Okay.
Because in addition to being able to participate in these hearings, both Mr. Benson and Mr. Crossman could then be qualified to vote.
Okay.
So I think that if we get to the point where we're reviewing, there's new information that's going to come across to us now related to stormwater, wildlife habitat, and then when we get to waivers, that's all brand new information to this commission. We've had brief conversations about some of that stuff in the past, but some of that conversation was the prior filing. and it's not even this filing. So I think that really all we have to do is review the wetland conditions and the boundaries and the proposed work and the site conditions related to the soil testing and cover that. I think you can do that in a abbreviated, accelerated manner so that Nate and Al get the information they need to be able to qualify the vote.
Okay, and just so all the commission knows, this has been peer reviewed. Like I said, Andrea reviewed it first as the agent and then as a peer reviewer. Mark, who's on the call from LEC, has reviewed the project. Of course, Jennifer's been looking at it. Woodard and Curran reviewed both the stormwater for your commission as well as for the planning board. And we have a floodplain mapping issue out here. Woodard and Curran also, we had extensive review and changes due to the floodplain. So there's been, I think we're at closure with many of the technical issues, but I understand your point that an overview, and then we can talk about the closure as we go along with the different peer reviewers.
I think that's it. And I think there's been a lot of staff action on this and peer review action, which we've asked for.
Yes.
And we needed. This is not a project that 5 commissioners that are capable of doing themselves. So we need all that assistance, and at the same time, ultimately, we're the ones who have to vote up or down. So
yeah, I understand.
And so I want to give you, the applicant, the best possible opportunity to give us your best case scenario for this project. And you've done a lot of work on this. I think there's a lot of anticipation about what this project can bring, and we're really looking forward to seeing what the final product looks like here 2+ years later. I mean, our first meeting was with you guys in, I think, February 2020 was when we did a joint planning and zoning board and conservation commission meeting at that time, and that was the first time we had seen the project. So and then, as you said, a year later we had to refile because most of the commission turned over, and here we are again with 2 new members and making you sort of backtrack a little bit, unfortunately.
Sure, that's fine. I'm just trying to figure out what my marching orders are for the next meeting. So
I understand. That's why I started off the conversation, because I wanted to make sure that we were all on the same page so that we could get it. Okay, so I will let you drive the bus at this point.
I think at this point, then maybe since we're going to the next meeting with an overview, and I'm really not prepared to do that tonight, I can go through the project plans, but I think it'd be better if I put together a presentation, a brief presentation, and then we can rely on the plans where we need to, and we can talk about the different issues that many of us have talked about over the past few years. So I think at this point, maybe unless some of the commissioners that have been on for a while that want to ask questions, I think maybe we talk about continuing.
So do you want to present material that we don't have to start with? I don't think we have to start at A, B, C. Like if we want to start at C tonight, if you were prepared to present wildlife or anything else tonight, we can do that. I don't want to sit here and say, have us as commissioners simply say, have the applicant say, well, do you have any questions? Like, I think I'd like some sort of information coming to me as opposed to me digesting a 50-page report.
Yeah, I just don't want it to be out of context for the new commissioners. I mean, if we talk about the endpoints that we're on now with several of the studies, it may be out of context for them. They may not understand what we're talking about and how we got there. And it's totally up to you. I can go through, like Mark is sitting here. We've gone through, we have 2 vernal pools. One of the pools actually has 2 sub pools in it, but we have 2 vernal pools on the site. We've had extensive conversations about the vernal pools. We're not in vernal pool habitat. We are in vernal pool buffer. And we've talked about what that means. There are wood frogs and yellow spotted salamanders out on the site. So I know Mark Mark's worked with Lori and myself on this. We've done a lot of field work. Jennifer was out there with Lori, at the appropriate time, checking out the vernal pools. So we have a lot of data on those subjects, and Mark has come up with a summary letter, but I'm thinking maybe it's better to to do the quick start from the beginning and then get into some of the remaining details, unless Jennifer, unless you want to talk about that stuff tonight.
I'm trying, and I'll get to Jennifer in a second. I just want to make sure the point that I'm trying to make here is I'm trying to be as efficient with the timeline as possible for you as well.
Mhm.
Right. And I understand and take the point that this has been a long time coming, and I do want to continue to move forward. So my question to Jennifer would be, do you believe there is something that Mike could give us tonight to maybe make some efficient use of tonight's time, or is it really taking it out of order going to be less beneficial overall?
I mean, I think they prepared something for tonight just to go over what they submitted, and Mark is here, so it probably makes sense to let them, give their presentation, and then it'll be more of a summary the next time after everything goes over. After they go over the whole project.
I'm okay with that, Mike.
Okay.
I agree with Jennifer. I think that both Nate and Al have enough understanding of the project that in looking at the file to be able to put your comments tonight and Mark's feedback as well in context. And of course, if Lori has anything to contribute as well, more than welcome to. So I think we're okay context wise. I think just next time we might just be able to wrap it all up in so it comes together, so everybody's got the same information so that they can all vote.
Okay. Let me put one graphic up for you. We can talk about this a little bit. Mark can jump in, at the appropriate time. I think it kind of shows subject matter from a lot of the areas that we're talking about. So let me just share this with you. Okay. So this is the project. The east side of the site was the former foundry. And so this east side of the site is all previously developed, previously disturbed. There's a fence line, and we can get into specifics, but for the most part, this is a previously disturbed area. The west side of the site is not. The west side of the site is forested. There are some trails and things and stone walls, but it's a forested area. On the west side, we have this big wetland system. Down the middle is wetland A, and at the bottom of wetland A, there's a vernal pool down in this area. And over here in this wetland system, which is wetland E, there's a vernal pool up in this lobe, and there's a smaller area of vernal pool habitat down in this lobe as well. So this is the project. It's 46 homes that we're talking about. And the main entrance comes in where the foundry entrance currently is. Some of you are familiar with that, driving up and down. This is where the town had done a major sewer project. So there's giant piles right here, right now, where the material that came from the sewer project, where this site was used as a staging area for the sewer project. So there's giant piles right here. You've probably driven by this. Wetlands all around. We've got two perennial streams. We've got Mulberry Meadow Brook, which is on this side, over on the west side of the site. We've got Beaver Brook that runs, wrong area, runs here through the east side of the site. There's Old Pond and New Pond. That's what controls the brooks in this area. So the site is bisected by a perennial stream and by these wetland systems. We have isolated wetland systems, these little ones here. We've got several isolated, this one up here. We've got several isolated systems, which are locally jurisdictional. And then we have BVWs, which are both locally and state jurisdictional areas. So lots of riverfront, lots of wetlands, vernal pools, floodplain mapping did not match very well in this particular section of Beaver Brook. So we've gone through a significant effort of doing remapping, which Woodard and Curran's been reviewing, and it's going to go to FEMA as a map revision. There's actually a 54-inch culvert down here, which carries Beaver Brook underground. Part of this project is, it's not showing on this particular plan, but part of this project is to remove that. This white land down here is town land. It used to be part of the parcel, but the previous owner had donated some of these parcels to the town. So this is now town land down here. So we're talking about doing a daylighting. So it's essentially an ecological restoration project as part of this project. And then next time I'll bring some plans that show all of that. And so we want to daylight the stream and build a wetland system adjacent, make a sinuous curve on the stream here. The stream channel is actually going to be longer. There's also a pipe that runs through the old foundry site. It was probably a water supply thing for the old foundry, but what it winds up doing is it cuts off the low flow of Beaver Brook. And so there's a section of Beaver Brook upstream of the 54-inch culvert that during low flow is dry. And so as part of this project, we're also going to cut and cap that pipe to return flow to this other segment of Beaver Brook. So there's a lot of mitigation proposed on this project. There's financial mitigation as well as land donations. And that's partially what this is showing. This is showing the lots that will be made out of these parcels. The green is the lots that the homeowners are going to have. The blue, the dark blue, is common land that's going to be held by a homeowners association. And then all of the green, the different shades of green around here are lots that are going to be donated to the town. I think it's 11.53 acres of land, including the area that contains the vernal pool, local vernal pool habitat, and a lot of the buffer for the vernal pools, as well as riverfront. That's actually what this particular graphic was put together for, was riverfront donations. So this just kind of gives you an overview of the project. One way into the site, there's a wetland crossing going across here, and you can see the way it snakes around. And that was a series of discussions that we had with the commission during the first hearings and then during the second set of hearings to avoid wetland impact to the greatest extent possible. So we've stayed completely out of the isolated wetlands. We've stayed out of the BVWs as much as possible. We have a BVW hit here, and of course one by the brook crossing. And then we have significant BVW mitigation areas, replication areas up in here, and then down in here. And I'll bring in graphics showing all of that next time I have them, but we've got so many documents. I don't want to keep throwing documents up. I thought this was a kind of a good overview for the commissioners that may not have seen this before. There are stormwater areas. These common area lots, lot K, lot L, parts of lot G, part of lot A. Those are stormwater basin, part of lot E. Those are stormwater basins, and that's why they're in the common land that's going to be held by the homeowners association. So it's part of the homeowner's responsibility to maintain those stormwater basins. There are, as Commissioner Spady will tell you, there are trails down on the public lands to the south, and part of this project is to provide a connection between people walking around Old Pond, coming across. There's going to be a signalized intersection coming across using some of the sidewalks, but then getting to a trail system that we're going to extend down to the property line to get down to the trails to the south. So there's a lot of moving parts to this project. Part of this area over in here, because it was the foundry, went through the environmental investigations under the mass contingency plan. And this area has gotten a clean bill of health. There was some cleanup that occurred, but it's gotten a clean bill of health. There are some areas along here, along Beaver Brook, that as part of this project, we're also going to be doing cleanup of some artifacts, for lack of a better term, that were left behind from the former use on the site. And what we've talked about too is because riverfront in the Wetland Protection Act is kind of broken down into two categories: undeveloped riverfront and previously developed / degraded riverfront. And with staff, and this is going to be up to the commission as well, but with staff, we've agreed that this eastern side of the site is all previously developed. So under the riverfront regulations, we were looking towards 10.585, which is the previously developed, which has a set of criteria that we were following. And we've gone through that with Jennifer and with Mark and with Andrea as well. This western side is considered as previously undeveloped. And so that's under 10.544. So that has more stringent requirements and some additional requirements, including alternatives analysis and least environmentally damaging practical alternative analysis, which we've gone through, and the commission has seen a lot of that in past hearings, but I can bring that forward at the next meeting as well. So we've got a lot of moving parts. We have a lot of regulations that we're dealing with for the different resource areas. And therefore we have a lot of documents that we uploaded to Permitize. And I know that, you know, like all the waiver requests, for example, we have waiver requests for all the individual resource areas. So there's a lot of reading up there. And what I'll try to do next time is to just bring in, as I started tonight, an overview of the project and then talk about the different resource areas and the different waivers that we're asking the commission to grant this project. Want me to keep going, Mr. Chairman? Or
Yeah, absolutely.
stop for questions?
Anybody have any questions? I appreciate the overview for bringing everybody back to what we're looking at here. So.
For tonight, we were gonna talk about addressing, you know, how we addressed Andrea's questions, how we addressed Jennifer's questions, and how we addressed Mark's questions. And we can certainly get into some of that, but again, I wonder if we don't want to take a step back next time and then get into that kind of material. Unless, I mean, we have Mark on the line tonight, so, you know, we did, Mark from LEC did wildlife habitat review, and that was a major point of discussion with the commissioners in past hearings. And so I think we've addressed the issues. We've never said, I'll never say that there's no impact. The development project always has some impact. It's just a matter of how do you minimize the impact? How do you avoid impact? How do you mitigate the impact? And I think we've successfully done all three with this plan. But if you'd like, we can have Mark weigh in.
Yeah, I mean, I think that wildlife habitat has been a big issue in this particular project, given the especially the development on the west side of the property. So, I mean, I certainly want to hear from Mark, especially since he's here today and took the time out of his busy workday to arrange to come tonight. So I would like to hear some information from Mark. I don't know if there's an intro from you, Mike, that you want to provide to us and the public, that then Mark could sort of piggyback off, but I'll leave it up to you to sort of how you want to present that information regarding wildlife impact and whatnot.
Part of what we've submitted as part of the record is a fairly extensive wildlife habitat evaluation, and it wound up distilling down to questions about the potential vernal pool habitat, especially on the western side of the site, and the vernal pool upland overwintering habitat, so in the buffer zone and just outside the buffer zone to the vernal pools on the western part of the site. And as I said, we've got vernal pools on either side of us. We've got one here and we've got a couple here. So this development is in an upland area right in the middle, and especially for yellow-spotted salamanders, upland overwintering habitat is important. That's where they migrate from to get to the vernal pools to breed. And so that was a lot of discussion between Mark and Lori and Jennifer and I about what do we think is happening out here? What's going on in the vernal pools, which, as I said, we've done several years of investigation as to what's going on in the vernal pool, even back to the original ORAD. When Lucas Environmental did that, they identified vernal pool species, and we've consistently identified that there are vernal pool species out here. So just as a general overview, we've just had a discussion as to whether or not the project as proposed and the mitigation as proposed meets the standards for protection of those vernal pools. So maybe we can let Mark weigh in on that.
Sure, thank you. I think it's a good summary of kind of how we got here. So we did have a discussion. I sent around a draft report, which was essentially the same as the report that I submitted today in terms of the content. The major topic of discussion is terrestrial vernal pool habitat buffer zone. As Mike mentioned, that's essentially the area where this western portion of the project is going to be constructed. Since we last commented back in December, Jennifer and Lori did a actual vernal pool study of these pools to find out what species were using them this spring and how many egg masses were there and that sort of thing. And that was very helpful in helping us understand. It's an important data point to help us understand the size of the population that's actually using these vernal pools, because that's directly related to how critical the terrestrial habitat is. And we found, or Jennifer and Lori found, what I would say is a pretty significant population of wood frogs out there and a pretty significant population of yellow spotted salamanders. You know, there's nothing in the regulations that says, 5 egg masses equals significant, or 10 egg masses equals significant, or 1 egg mass equals insignificant. So we're in sort of a subjective area when it comes to sort of attributing value to these vernal pools in terms of the populations using them. But at any rate, the population that was found is large enough to justify a real close analysis of the disturbances in the upland area from this part of the project. And essentially, I think Mike alluded to it, it's almost impossible to say there'll be no impact from this. I think anyone familiar with sort of general wildlife habitat principles would understand that constructing a new roadway and numerous homes in an area that's currently basically undeveloped upland would have some impact. How do we quantify that impact? Well, it's difficult. We don't know which way the particular individuals using these vernal pools move to and from the vernal pools. So it's kind of hard to say, but certainly the central location of the work footprint appears to be critical to supporting these populations. As a way to analyze this, I guess just backing up. So the analysis of wildlife habitat was really specific to the waiver request, right? So for the commission's sake, making a decision on this project largely boils down to the waiver request, right? They're requesting, as Mike said, multiple waivers to multiple performance standards. And the waiver standard, one of the 3 waiver standards, is that there cannot be any significant adverse effects to any of the bylaw wetland values. And really, wildlife habitat is sort of the key one here. I think with their mitigation plan, they've demonstrated that all the other wetland values are either avoided or mitigated, but wildlife's the one that is sort of the last remaining value that needs to be considered by the commission. And really, that's the question for the commission, is they have a fairly sizable package of mitigation here. Some of it's required, mandatory mitigation like wetland replication and compensatory flood storage. So in some respects, that doesn't necessarily count in this analysis, but there's other mitigation that's being provided in, wildlife enhancements, the land donation, the trail, there's several items. The entire stream daylighting process is a significant mitigation piece. So, to sort of boil it down, we think there will be an impact to the species using these vernal pools. And the question for the commission is the mitigation package sufficient to offset that impact? And if there's lingering hesitation about that, I suggested that the commission might consider a condition, if the project's approved through a vote, a condition that would call for continued monitoring of the vernal pool species to determine the scope of the impact. And if the scope of the impact is is significant, then maybe additional vernal pool mitigation, additional vernal pool buffer mitigation would be triggered in some manner. Gets a little complicated how you word that in a condition, but it was just a thought, something to consider if that question lingers.
So I think that thank you, Mark, for that. Michael, I cut you off there.
That's okay. I was going to say part of the construction process is to isolate this area from the vernal pools by putting in essentially drift fences, so fences to keep the species from moving back and forth into the construction zone. And then prior to construction, doing a cover board analysis out here and trying to see if we have adults that we can move over the fence, and get them out of harm's way, if you will. Part of what's going on here too is there are some encroachments up in this area, which is fairly close to this vernal pool. But there's some really good, overwintering habitat up in here as well. And there's some overwintering habitat down here. We never disputed that there's a potential for overwintering habitat disturbance in the middle. It's just a question, as Mark said, is the entire package of mitigation, the mitigation prior to construction, the mitigation during construction, post construction mitigation, is that entire package sufficient to offset the potential impacts?
So one of the things that I think that Mark touched base on a little bit, and Michael, you've been touching base on as well, is things that are being done that try and give a positive impact in other areas where there may be some impact in the vernal pools. And I think we've had this conversation multiple times already, that we sort of felt like there was no way to avoid any impact. It was whether or not the impact was overall something that we felt like was not significant. I mean, I think that's where we came down on this. And I think one of the factors that we had to this was that stream daylighting, and whether or not that would have a positive wildlife habitat impact in general, not necessarily to the vernal pool species, but in general. Is there any sort of consideration to, I mean, I can only imagine that daylighting a stream and adding bank in where it's just a straight shot through a culvert right now is got to be much better than the culvert. So, I mean, is there any way to sort of discuss qualitatively rather than quantitatively what that impact might have on habitat? I don't know, Mark, you want to take a stab at that?
I think there probably is a way to do it. I mean, I think, broadly speaking, it's certainly going to be a significant improvement. Like you said, anytime you remove a long piped stream and restore it to a more natural water course and put in all the native plantings, it's obviously going to be an improvement. Trying to really quantify that, I think, would require a wildlife habitat evaluation that is specific to that river, and trying to understand what species currently utilize that stretch, how that culvert might currently function as an obstacle to wildlife movement, and that sort of thing. But if I understand the question correctly, I don't necessarily think that's necessary here. I think this is clearly an improvement, and an improvement that will positively affect wildlife habitat. Maybe not specific to the vernal pools, but maybe it will actually provide some terrestrial habitat in the buffer portion of this for the vernal pools as well, vernal pool species.
What kind of vernal pool buffer mitigation could we do post construction that would assist with any potential impact to the population that we're not anticipating if we choose to move forward with the project.
It's really additional terrestrial improvements out there, like the area, I think just to the left, to the west of what you're looking at right now, you can see the topography here is not very natural. And I think that landscape throughout large swaths of that area has been historically disturbed, and I don't know that it provides any overwintering habitat for vernal pool species.
Yeah, I just want to introduce this slide quickly for the commissioners that may not know this. This is to the north, up at the top of the screen, is the eastern part of the site. That's the old Foundry site. So what I'm showing here is the stream daylighting. This will be a new stream channel, which is going to replace the culvert, the 175-foot long culvert that carries the brook. And then also shown in this is that 36-inch pipe that's going to be, which actually bypasses Beaver Brook from way up here to way down here. So there's a couple of significant barriers in that stream corridor. So that's what this very colorful plan is showing. It's showing the stream daylighting and the proposed grading and restoration in this area. The vernal pool that Mark was talking about is just over here. It's in Wetland A, so it's just off to the east. One of the other things that I do want to mention is we do have some vernal pool habitat, upland habitat mitigation in our proposal already. We have some areas that we're proposing to move some stone walls, which provide pretty good cover habitat. We've got some cleanup in some of the areas that are in the vernal pool buffer zone. So our proposal does have some mitigation in upland areas to provide additional vernal pool buffer protection.
Great. I want to give the other commissioner members an opportunity to ask questions. Anyone have any questions about vernal pools, wildlife habitat that we haven't covered here? Mike?
Well, I know, we were out there with Mark and obviously as well, Rory and Jen. I mean, this is stuff that I've kind of felt going along, looking at this project the whole time. There's a ton of habitat here. Absolutely. I don't really have any questions. It's going along with what we kind of know. We kind of felt we were going to find a lot of habitat there, and we're now finding it. So.
Great. So from your perspective, is there sufficient mitigation happening to not significantly adverse impact here, or?
What's positive is I'm going back there so much. There's a lot of trash and garbage there anyway. So my better thought to it is, okay, well, this is going to get cleaned up significantly. I mean, that culvert, you guys should go check it out. We all saw it, but check it out. It's gross. That would be nice to be gone. Yeah. I mean, I think the cleanup is a pretty rewarding thing. Otherwise, it sits. I don't know if that's any better. I guess I'm trying to think future. If the future of this, maybe 5 years down the road with, a little time, does this actually become better versus where it could stay now, which is kind of stagnant. I mean, some parts are rode through from ATVs too, and just, it can be a little better.
Right.
It's a tough one. I'm not going to kid you. I don't really.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we've talked all along that this is probably I think Mark mentioned it. The wetland stuff outside the vernal pools is the mitigation and the replication that's going on is pretty significant, and seems to meet guidelines. An initial review. So from that perspective, yeah, Lori, you can turn on your camera and you can talk too if you have something to say.
So I'm on a cell phone. I don't know how to turn on my camera. But I just wanted to make mention that the culvert that is being removed at the outlet end of that culvert, there is a like 2 to 3 foot drop between the bottom of the culvert and the elevation of the stream downstream from that culvert. So once that culvert is removed and low flow is returned to Beaver Brook, there is going to be significant habitat restored along about 400 linear feet of Beaver Brook that currently does not exist during low flow conditions. That bypass pipe picks up low flow and sends it all the way around approximately 400 feet of Beaver Brook during the latter part of this summer. So by returning flow, there's going to be wildlife corridors that are restored along the brook. Fish passage is going to be returned to the brook, and amphibian passage will be returned to the brook. Turtle passage, reptile passage, and also there'll be groundwater infiltration that will be occurring during low flow conditions, rather than that low flow going through that culvert, that bypass culvert. It will be infiltrating into the groundwater during summer months, which I believe is important in this particular situation.
Yeah, thank you, Lori. I appreciate it. You know, one of the things that I think that Mike, and if you've got anything sort of to comment, just one of the things, just a very small thing to say, but it's sort of the way I sort of even consider it is that, you know, we have this impact on the vernal pool species, and then we have all these smaller positive changes around the site in other ways. And the real question is, you know, you have this one thing over here, and then you have these 20 other smaller things. Do they offset that? And that's the conversation we've been having. And I don't think I'm saying anything that's unique here, but
right.
But I think that's the way I sort of look at it, as that. Yes, we understand there's some impact here. It's whether or not we feel like it's acceptable. That's
right.
Really what
and Lori can jump in on this too. I mean, part of what we investigated was, you know, how good is that upland area in between those vernal pools? How valuable is it as a resource for overwintering habitat? And it's not the best overwintering habitat. It's not to say that there aren't vernal pool species that live there, but it's not, you know, the classic Class A overwintering habitat for vernal pool species. So is there going to be an impact? Undoubtedly. You can't have a development without impact. But is that impact so significant that it really impacts those vernal pools and the ability for those vernal pools to remain viable? And we don't think it does. And the other thing Lori brought up one other thing I just want to mention. We're also adding turtle nesting habitat as part of this project. So, you know, some of this stuff is out of kind, if you will. So you've got in-kind mitigation, out-of-kind mitigation. But if you look at the overall habitat mitigation that's being proposed for this project, it's pretty significant.
Yeah, I think it's just we have to get there.
Yeah, I know.
Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, maybe for Mark, Mike, either one, but maybe I'm crazy. So the new saying the you know the properties get built and so on, would that help maybe block the animals from now, say, getting to the road like they are now? Because obviously that wood line is right up against Foundry Street. Would that, in a sense, kind of maybe further protection for them? Or is that just crazy? Because obviously now this is pushing that wood line significantly back, having now homes blocking, you know, the road. Does that in a way kind of benefit their safety? Or am I just throwing it out there?
Yeah, I don't think so.
No, it's not even. Okay, trying to make something good out of it in a sense.
Yeah. There's roadkill now, and unfortunately I think there'll be roadkill in the future.
Yeah, I figured as much, but I just didn't know.
if you look at the Old Pond, New Pond area, and then you look at, Beaver Brook and Mulberry Meadow Brook, I mean, there's a corridor there that's been historically interrupted by development, by roads, by the foundry, by all kinds of stuff. And just because the corridor is interrupted doesn't mean that genetically there aren't
Right, they're not gonna knock it down.
populations that want to use that corridor.
Right.
Yeah.
Jennifer, did you want to add anything at some point?
Not right now. No, thank you.
I realize here that we're doing a lot of talking here, and I don't know that I offered you anything. Lori, go ahead.
Sorry. So we are adding some additional cross culverts underneath the road west of Beaver Brook. One is connecting Wetland A to Wetland B, which it will provide some movement, continual movement of amphibians and other wildlife through the project site. And there's also a longer culvert proposed down between Wetland F and the Vernal Pool A. It's a smaller culvert, would likely be used by amphibians such as frogs. Unclear as to whether salamanders would use that particular cross culvert, because there's conflicts in the literature as far as whether the salamanders need to see daylighting at the end of a culvert or not in order to use it. But frogs and turtles would be able to use that smaller culvert, that F2A. That's right down.
I know that Lori can't see the plan, but I put a plan up and I'm just going to point to it. This is Wetland F. This is an isolated wetland that early on in the project, there were actually homes proposed in this area. And as part of the discussions with the Conservation Commission, a lot of these homes got pulled away, and then, 2 houses were lost in this particular area here in order to not go into this isolated wetland system. And so this is the culvert that Lori's talking about. That's kind of a connectivity here. And then there's a second one up here. And I think there's actually a third one. I don't see it on the plan, but there's a third one up here. So this isolated wetland gets connected through here. This isolated wetland gets connected through here.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
The two on that side, Mike.
Okay.
Plus
And then
the-
this is the crossing. This is the brook crossing in the far corner of the graphic. Sorry, Lori.
Yeah, so we are, we do provide, we do meet the stream crossing standards for that particular crossing that Mike was just pointing to. We're also providing wildlife move. Yeah, correct. We're also providing for wildlife movement along Mulberry Brook by only constructing stormwater basins close to the riverfront area. There'll be some, therefore, vegetation and vegetation areas where wildlife can move along Mulberry Brook along the back of the site. Originally, there were homes proposed at those two basins, and we reconfigured the project so that it's more of a natural vegetated area.
There's another isolated wetland down here that we avoided through the reconfiguration of the development over time. And this purple area here, part of this is the detention basin. Part of this is turtle nesting habitat. Same thing in here. We have turtle nesting habitat on several of these basins.
Okay. Any other questions from the commission before I go to public comment? Or offer Mike the opportunity to present anything else he wants to present tonight?
No, I think I'll do a quick PowerPoint slideshow next time, just kind of giving everybody a, beginning of time overlook. We've talked about some of the specifics that'll be in there. We can talk about them again. And we've got, Jennifer, we've got questions about numbers that we're still working through. Part of that is because there are so many versions of the plans. Actually, I saw a snippet of the plan that you took some numbers from, and unfortunately, that's an older version. So
Okay.
Lori and I actually spent our Friday night together scrubbing through the numbers, making sure that we had all the numbers right. So I've been presenting tables. We have a series of revised tables that I'm going to send over to you and I'll upload for the commission, that breaks things out, breaks out riverfront and floodplain and shows impacts and mitigation, including the floodplain foot by foot analysis you asked for, which we had on the plans volumetrically, but now we have the areas as well.
Thank you. That really helps in filling out the order of conditions form.
Yeah.
Just compiling all
Yeah, and between Lori and Megan and I, we've gone through the numbers and we're pretty comfortable that we've got the right ones.
All right, good. Thank you.
Okay, so I think that's a plan, Mike, and I think it's once we sort of get all the information, the base information, we then have to sort of circle back and make sure that we're meeting all the requirements in the waivers, because as Mark alluded to and you alluded to, there's an awful lot of waivers, that we're performance standards we're having here, and then the fact that it's ACEC rare species that we have to sort of deal with. So, we need to do all that.
Not rare species out here. That's the
Correct,
one thing we don't have.
That's true. That's true. We don't have natural heritage.
No.
With all these, right. So any public comment for 560 Foundry Street? Okay, so seeing none, do we want to continue to 627?
Please.
So make a motion to continue 560 Foundry to 627.
Beatty, second.
Caulfield, Spady, a second. Roll call vote. Caulfield's aye.
Vincent, aye.
Carol, I.
Crossman, aye.
Spady, aye.
Okay, Mike, I appreciate you going with the flow and us after we threw you a curveball tonight.
Sure, no problem.
Thanks.
All right, thanks a lot, guys.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks, Lori.
Thank you all.
Bye-bye. So next up is a certificate of compliance for 189 Massapog.
That one's ready to be issued.
Anybody have any questions? I can bring up plans and anybody needs anything to see. So, any public comment? 189 Massapog. Seeing none, make a motion to issue a certificate of compliance for 189 Massapog Avenue.
Second.
Caulfield's Benson, second. Roll call vote. Caulfield's aye.
Vincent, aye.
Carol, I.
Crossman, aye.
Beatty, aye.
5-0. Next up is a certificate of compliance for 9 Tamarack Lane. So Jennifer, can you just give us a bit of a summary here?
I can. We do have a hand up though, the professional wetland scientist.
Okay. Maybe he can give us an explanation. He's been waiting for 2.5 hours. So give him a chance. Okay, David, you can unmute yourself, turn on your video, and tell us what we got in front of us here.
All right. Hi, guys. Can you hear me?
Sure, absolutely.
All right, great. Yeah. Sorry, Zoom just glitched momentarily while it segued into making me a panelist. So what we did, this is a request for a certificate of compliance on a long lapsed order of conditions that sat for many years. The original order of conditions was granted in, I think, 1995. So there's been 27 years that's lapsed since issuance of the permit. The permit was issued for construction of a single-family house with an associated subsurface septic system. In the permit, it had permitted fill of wetland resource areas, BVW. I think it was 25,000 square feet of wetland fill. And it was conditioned that they would provide 5,000 square feet of wetland replication, so at a 2-to-1 ratio. To do something like this, it requires a bit of sleuthing and investigation to go back in time to see what had been permitted. In this circumstance, regretfully, it sounds like the town had an incident at some point where the records on this had been lost. So we did what we could to go back to what was recorded at the Registry of Deeds and what was what records that we had dating back to 1997. So for this exercise, we did find somewhere buried that there was an as-built plan for the foundation of the house and the septic system. There looks like there was a partial certificate of compliance issued, which it was conditioned for construction of the foundation and the septic system. So that alludes to the fact that civil construction had been complete. Typically in these circumstances, you have 2 to 3 years of monitoring of wetland replication before issuance of a complete certificate of compliance, which, and again, I'm filling in the blanks here. I assume that is what had been done. So we went back and we looked at the current conditions of the wetland replication area to determine a few things. We wanted to see whether or not the replication area had in fact been created 27 years ago, whether or not it still qualifies as a jurisdictional bordering vegetated wetland. And we looked at the surface area of that system. To do this, I went back, I redelineated the wetland resource area to see where the wetland BVW is today, to see if they did in fact fill 25,000 square feet and if they created 5,000 square feet.
I think you mean 2,500 square feet.
2,500. Oh, did I say 20? Oh, God. Sorry.
That's
I was
okay.
listening to my colleague, Mike Toohill, and Mark.
He's got 25,000 to deal with.
Yeah, no, sorry, it's in my head. Thank you for pointing out 2,500 square feet. Yeah, thank you. And it's the wetland replication area appears to be good. There was no planting plan, so I didn't know specifically what species had been planted. But looking at the replication area today, it looked healthy. It looked like they did create a good BVW that still is sustainable today based on extent of hydric soils and dominance by wetland indicator plant species. And there's very little occurrence of invasive species in there. There might have been a few individuals of multiflora rose and a few individuals of glossy buckthorn, but otherwise it was substantially wetland, good wetland plants. There was royal fern, sensitive fern, soft rush, lord sedge, the shrubs that were in there. I think there was high bush blueberry. Appears to be healthy. The only criticism, I don't know that it's a criticism, but the surface area wasn't quite 5,000 square feet of what we did. It was over 3,000 square feet. So 27 years later, it doesn't quite meet the 2-to-1 ratio that was specified originally. But the other point I want to make is that this has changed ownership 3 or 4 times. So we represent the current property owner, Darlene Sessa. I think she's the 3rd or 4th owner of this house since construction. And it was her property attorney that looked at the Registry of Deeds. I don't know with the prior purchase and sales, I don't think they did the same due diligence that her property attorney did to find this old order of conditions. So I think that summarizes where we are today. And I would ask Jennifer if she had opportunity to visit and what her review of this was.
I did. I would agree with you. Even though it's less than what was required, I don't see any reason to take down mature upland forests to construct any additional wetland in that area. The only thing I would mention is there was a subsequent permit for a septic system repair that should still be recorded on the deed. And I'm sure there's already a septic as-built. If they want to close out that file as well, then they could just submit that that request, and we would certainly take a look at that.
Yeah, we'd be happy to do that.
Yeah, thanks.
We'll do it as a subsequent filing to request a certificate on the.
Great. Yeah, be great to close out both things for them.
Yep.
So I mean, I certainly think from my perspective, it's not what was conditioned, but it's not terrible. Let's put it that way. And 27 years later, I think it's more than 1-to-1. I think I'm good moving forward on this and just issuing this and getting a clean bill of health for this title and whatnot. So that's my opinion. Any comments from the commission? Any public comments? 9 Tamarack Lane. So seeing none, I'm going to make a motion to issue a certificate of compliance for 9 Tamarack Lane on DEP number 0500, Easton number 303.
Beatty, second.
Caulfeld, Spady, a second. Roll call vote. Caulfield's aye.
Benson, aye.
Carol, I.
Crossman, aye.
Spady, aye.
I appreciate it, David.
Great.
Thanks for
Much
hanging out.
appreciated on our end. And Jennifer, I'd be happy to follow up with you on the septic repair as built and request on that one. So,
That's good. Thank you.
all right. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.
Be well.
So next up is 232 Prospect Street. This is a request for certificate of compliance on a septic repair, I recall.
Yes.
You want to give us an update on this?
Looks like we just had some compost that was supposed to have been removed from the wetland, and I have not received confirmation that was done yet. Otherwise, the septic system is fine.
Okay, so you should see that, right?
Yes.
Let me rotate it so I can tell what's going on here. Can't do it. So, so the septic's in the front yard. The wetlands surround the property here in the rear. In this area over here, there's a gate that goes out the back, and of course, the gate means that people want to use it to dump their lawn clippings. So, there was a pile of lawn clippings, as well as I think the straw wattle was out there, and a bunch of other things. Actually, I think a wheelbarrow and something else in the wetlands as well. Some of it's been removed. I was there yesterday. Not all of it has been removed. I can probably share a picture. We can decide what to do. Oh my. I have too many emails. So this is the pile as it stands today. You can see over here, that's the wheelbarrow that's in the thing. And on this tree, you can see that's the wetland flag. So the wetland line runs right to the back part of the property. So it's not a great amount of leaves. It's not even a great amount of lawn clippings anymore, but it is out there. The applicant was told to remove some of it. I didn't see it before. Jennifer saw it before. So
It looks like the only thing that was removed was the straw wattle. The rest of the pile is still in there.
fair enough. So so that's in front of us here. So we can issue a partial, we can deny. Those are our choices. Comments from anybody?
Make them move it. You already asked them to move it. How come all I did was remove one part of it?
Not even a part of it.
Yeah, just tell them to move it. So would that be a denial?
Yeah, right. That's
It's denial.
Can we continue it with a request to move?
You can?
That would be good too.
I say we continue it to the next meeting, ask them to move it and send us a photo that it's gone.
To give them a week.
What happens if they don't move it?
We
Denial.
Deny.
So we deny it, and then they still have the open permit on their.
But at least this way, if they want to move it, they don't have to pay to. Is there a fee associated with closing it out?
There is a fee with a request
Yeah.
for certificate of compliance.
Yeah, so I think the middle ground here is to continue.
Sure.
So
Yes.
So any public comment? 232 Prospect. I'll make a motion to continue 232 Prospect to June 27th and advise the homeowner to remove the compost pile as originally requested.
I'll
Second.
second.
Oh, did I get it? I wanted to get
Crossman,
one.
second. So Caulfield's Crossman second. Roll call vote. Caulfield's aye.
Benson, I.
Carol, I.
Crossman, aye.
Maybe I.
Thank you. So that's continued to 627. Next up is 23 Deer Run Road. I think we've got Josh White.
Hi guys, can you hear me?
Yep.
Good. All right, so let me share my screen and I'll just show the as-built plan.
So this is a in-ground pool. It was built in a residential backyard.
Yeah, so this was an NOI that we submitted in 2020 for the homeowner Joaquin. And he built his in-ground pool. And this is the as-built plan that we submitted. You can see the pool and the canopy and some other additions that he did to the plan. He relocated the shed to make way for the bar and grill station, it looks like. He added a fence around the pool. And from what we heard from during the construction, they ran into some groundwater issues and some soil issues. So in order to do that, they had to make some modifications in the field. That's why this additional boulder slope was added. It wasn't shown on the design plan like that. So that's the only change from the original NOI plan. But the wooden conservation markers, those are shown on the 50-foot buffer and they were installed. So that's pretty much it. I know they did remove the sediment controls as Jennifer requested. So yeah, that's kind of it.
I assume the homeowner has been waiting to remove those sediment controls for quite a period of time.
Yeah.
That was a feature he did not expect to have on his pool deck. So, so can you just, so that Jennifer, is there an issue with the boulder slope? Is it causing?
Nope, it was just notification that was different than the previous plan that was approved.
Yeah, I mean, if I recall this property, that there was a fairly, not significant, but there was a drop off at that part of the property, and you know, certainly.
Yeah, it did drop off pretty good. So in order to give them some flat area.
Was this a regrading that happened here? And so
essentially what they did was they made the flatter outside the pool area flatter, just so it doesn't drop off as quick.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Any questions from the commission? Jennifer, anything? Any public comment 23 Deer Run Road. Seeing none, make a motion to issue a certificate of compliance for 23 Deer Run Road.
80 second.
Callfell Spady is second. Roll call vote. Callfell's aye.
Benson, I.
Carroll, I.
Crossman, I.
Beatty, aye.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
So next up is enforcement for 91 Summer Street. So I know we have Eric here.
Hey guys.
Hello.
How are you? Brad Holmes should be on, and I think John Canavo might be in the audience.
They should both be coming over.
Excellent.
Evening, members of the commission. Brad Holmes here.
Hello, hello.
Hello.
Do you guys want to give us an update?
Sure, yeah. So since the last time that we were before you, I think we had just barely presented a restoration plan that Brad's office put together, and I don't think Jennifer had an opportunity to review it before the meeting at that point. In the couple of days following the meeting, Jennifer did review it, made some comments. We revised the plan accordingly. Jennifer issued the enforcement order, and we went out there and got to work. The plan, according to the enforcement order, we were to plant by June 1st, and I believe we made that mark. In fact, I know we made that mark. We finished up the planting, I think, almost a week in advance of that. Brad did put together a completion report that I'll ask him to go through in just a minute. A couple of notes I wanted to make. One, our efforts right now for the planting focused on the area of the cease and desist, which is on the 91 Summer Street. Mr. Chairman, you made it very clear in the last meeting that we had that you were interested in making sure that the rest of that planting work gets done as well. It was under the first order of conditions that we had. That is still on the docket to get done. We have not forgotten about that. We just focused on this, thinking it was of the most important right now. And the other comment I'll make is that I did have an opportunity to walk the site with Jennifer last week. She had some comments. I think by and large, we can, just focus in hopefully tonight on exactly what those comments are so we can get a straight list of them and we get to work and wrap this thing up. Brad, do you want to go through the completion report very quickly?
Sure. I was able to meet on site with the owner and his work crew. Prior to that, I coordinated the plant stock so that we made sure we had the right species and numbers for the planting plan. We kicked off the work. Prior to doing the planting work, there was a significant amount of cleanup that needed to be done. You couldn't even get a shovel in the ground because there was so much slash and logs remaining from the logging operation or clearing work. So that was done in preparation for the planting. I set up the crew with the planting efforts. The number of shrubs and sapling matched the restoration proposal. The restoration work follows the restoration plan, step by step. Get a chance to look at that. I wasn't able to meet with Jennifer and Eric last week. Eric did say that Jennifer is looking for some additional, woody material within the restoration area, which is totally doable. We have plenty of it on site. It can be moved in by hand. There is some additional cleanup work that does still need to be done. There's still some wood chip in the southeastern portion of the site that still needs to be cleaned by hand. I'd say 80 or 90% of that, or probably more than 90%, was removed. So this is just raking and cleaning. And any of the other items that Jennifer is looking for, we can certainly accomplish. But we're in a good position to be in front of you to at least say that we're the majority of the effort is done. The planting work is done. The restoration areas are stable, set up. And if there's some additional items that we can work with the commission on, I think we can do that.
Okay. Jennifer?
Yes, that's correct. So just add, it does look like a landscaped area more than a restored area. So just add some more, the dense woody debris if you can, different size, different shape, different length, logs, branches, whatever. It should look like a natural area, wildlife features. The commission should decide if they're going to require a visual barrier in that area and the bond for completion. I believe you guys were going to try to pull together an estimate. Once we have that agreed upon, we can revise the enforcement order to be the final version.
We have not had an opportunity to finalize that estimate yet, although Brad and I have been talking about it. I can certainly formalize something to get that over to Jennifer's office this week without an issue.
So from a visual barrier standpoint, we're talking something like a post and rail fence is typically what I think we propose.
I believe that's what you've done in the past. You may have done in the past.
Well, I understand the thought process behind it, certainly. I'm wondering if there's alternatives that we can consider. I did have a brief conversation with the owner about the idea of a split rail fence. That's one area where he's very much opposed. So if there's alternatives we can discuss to that in particular, I think that might be positive on our end at least.
So what's the basis for the opposition?
I think the opposition.
I'll chime in on that. It's really not the cost. It's not a money issue. I mean, he's probably spent, through his own fault. I'm not suggesting it was anyone other than his own fault. Probably, upwards of $50,000 to $60,000 in, remediation work within the last couple of weeks. So it's not a cost issue. It really has to do with the homes that will be built and what will ultimately look similar or fit into the area, and what typically, or what has been ordered by the commission in the past, aesthetically just will not look appropriate based on the expected homes that will be delivered and built there. So it's not a.
If the fence is going around the entire property, it would be very uniform. So it would look the same for all of the houses. So I'm not sure I understand that issue.
But with respect to the type of home that's going to be built, it's not the likely homes and the type of fence that is being proposed does not really comport with what the type of home. It just doesn't match. It would be like wearing a belt in. I'm wearing suspenders. I guess it'd be like wearing a belt in suspenders. They just don't go together from a stylistic perspective. Eric, correct me if I'm wrong.
Well, to use your own terminology, sometimes we use belt and suspenders to ensure that something gets done. So I mean, I'm open to, if you're telling me that aesthetically that's the way I'm understanding the opposition. Aesthetically, the proposal for a split rail fence or some other type of post and rail fence. I didn't even mention necessarily materials, but some sort of visual barrier, some physical barrier that designates this as not landscaped area that can be expanded into further lawn, but this is wetland resources that is to be protected. So get me to that point. How do we get there? That's the point of this. This isn't meant to be punitive or anything along those lines. It's meant to create a barrier for the homeowner that you're proposing here to make sure that they understand that their lawn is going to end somewhere and it's going to be at that fence that they, so get me there.
Sure, absolutely. And let me say, I completely understand your position without a doubt. I'm trying to think as I go through this, and my dogs bark in the background. Thank you. They've been asleep since 6:30, just so you know. They wake up now. Trying to think of ideas that we could propose. I know the restoration plan does have medallions on posts every 25 or 40 feet, something like that. So perhaps that's an option that we could go with, or maybe there's another type of fencing that we can go with. Maybe it's a stockade or a wrought iron fence. Is this something, obviously, we're not going to be done with this entirely tonight. Is this something that we can kick around kind of on the project team side and come back at the next meeting with a proposal for?
I am open to a proposal here for creating that barrier that is beyond just a post every 25 feet.
Sure. Okay. I think that's fair.
I'm looking for something more substantial than that. That is a not to be missed. I'm not crossing this line delineation.
Sure. Understood. Understood. I think that's fair. If you can just give us a little bit of time before we lock in exactly what that is, let us come up with a proposal. We'll get something back to you.
I don't have a problem with that. I think we're still waiting on the amount for the bond anyway. So I'm okay with that. Jennifer, thoughts?
Yep, that's fine.
Any other comments from the commission? Yeah. Yep. You know, I said what I had to say last time, so we won't repeat it. So we're getting there, and we hope this is the last time we ever have to deal with a enforcement order. Although I still want the other property taken care of. So
yes, sir. That is on our list, and we are aware.
Anything else from the commission? Any public comment on 91 Summer Street? I think we're down to us diehards. Okay, no public comment. So we'll see you, Jennifer. When do you want them back here?
Well, why don't you, I don't know how long it'll take you to submit your information. So it could be the next meeting if you have everything ready.
Let's put it on for the next meeting.
Well, I mean, this isn't a hearing, so you can just,
just
reach out to Jennifer and we'll get you on the agenda if you're ready.
Okay, great. Well, I'll plan on the next meeting, and if for some reason that's not going to happen, I'll coordinate with Jennifer directly. And
fair enough.
Either way, we'll be in touch.
And just for scheduling, it would be 2 weeks from tonight, correct?
3.
Okay, I apologize.
Because of the holiday, we had to switch up our schedule. Otherwise, we'd have been meeting on July 4th, and Mike Spadia said he didn't want to do that. So
I guarantee public comment would either be non-existent or fascinating, one or the other, depending upon who shows and what shape they're in.
My comment might be fascinating, depending on what shape I'm in.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Have a good evening, everyone.
Thank you all for your time. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Good night.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Okay, so next up, an update on 523 Turnpike.
Yeah, I just didn't get any response from the first letter with the landscaper putting the compost in the area that apparently a few years ago you required him to restore.
Yeah, and I didn't have time this weekend to try and find what that, give you a summary of it.
So I can send the second notice, or I can do an enforcement order, whatever you choose.
So I haven't been out to the property to see what it is. So can you give me a description? I mean, the only way I've ever been able to see this property, because there hasn't been a permit or anything, is to see it from the parking lot of the apartment complex next door, and I hold my phone up as high as I can.
Right, or they're right, be a butter. That's the same information I have. So it just looks like they're pushing compost and mulch piles further and further back, but it sounded like this had been addressed before and now it's starting again.
Well, I think last time he cleared. So, yeah. So what do you guys want to do?
Second notice.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
The first one to speak up gets their way on. Second notice it is. Nice job, Nate. Nate's saying, I just want this meeting to be over.
We're close.
Well, let's just keep going. We got a couple more hours till Tuesday.
Believe me, I've been here at 11. Jen has retrained.
My inspection starts early.
Okay, so meeting minutes from 5:23. Anybody have any comments?
Yep.
Anybody want to make a motion?
Motion to approve the minutes from 5:23.
I need a
You got
second.
me. You got me on that one. Second.
I think Benson got the second, so sorry. So Carol with Benson for the second to approve the minutes. Roll call vote. Caldwell's aye.
Benson, I.
Carol, I.
Crossman, aye.
Bailey, aye.
Chair report. So the only thing I have to report is that we still don't know about what's going to happen July 15th as far as extending the meetings. I'll keep you guys updated as soon as I know. But hopefully everybody comes to their senses and keeps us remote for a little while longer, at least through July 25th.
Senate has it proposed for December 2023. Just need the House to get coordinated with them because they had already voted and whatever.
Well, they'll probably decide on July 16th that it's extended. Just the way they are.
It'll be the 15th.
Believe me, they'll go to the 16th. The deadlines mean nothing to them, so we're good.
Some date in August.
Exactly. Jennifer, environmental planner updates.
Someone had asked about different things that could be done on conservation property. And so I ended up finding the regulations for use of conservation lands that had been done quite a while ago. I was putting it out there to see if there were any changes that any of you wanted. And then as we're posting signs on conservation property, then it's a good idea to include the rules and regulations, any dog signs. Eventually, I'd like to do land acknowledgements. But I figured we should just start with the rules and regulations. 3 or 4 pages is too long of rules and regulations, so I can condense that into 1 page with pictures. I find to work the best. But I wanted to, before I'd put any work into that, just make sure you guys were good with the existing rules and regulations. And if you had any changes, we could talk about them at another meeting, obviously, but it was just to bring it to your attention.
You know, I mean, I think your idea of finding some sort of pictograms or something to help with this and keep it on 1 page, it could be, you know, laminated and posted, I think is the absolute best approach here. I mean, most of the stuff here is, I mean, there's, you know, half a page of definitions. I don't think we need that, you know, so I think that, you know, things like no fires and stuff like that is, you know, stuff that just should be out there, you know, sort of a warning that hunting is allowed during seasons and stuff like that, that we want to do that. And, you know, dogs on leashes and pick up your trash and pick up any waste and all that other stuff. So I think that doing that is probably the best thing. We get questions about the hunting every single year. So we should just make it part of our sort of standard education process. You know, everybody asks, and, you know, Jennifer came to town and asked, do we allow hunting on conservation land? And I've been here so long that I said, of course we allow hunting on conservation land. And it's not always of course. I sort of, it's an of course here, but it's not an of course everywhere. So I'm sort of just, you know, obviously they can't be in people's backyards and doing hunting, but that's standard regulations anyway that aren't covered by what we do. So there's things out there.
Yeah, the only thing that we're different of with state, our own town, is we don't have hunting off trails. We don't have a distance, right, Jen?
I don't believe so.
Yeah, no, we don't. Your state you recognize as 500 feet. We don't. And towns they can go either way with it. So I mean, obviously hasn't had any issues here. So.
Right. So I mean, people, you know, and I say this to everybody here and anybody who ever watches this, you know, whenever you're out there in hunting season, make sure you're wearing, you know, something orange, you know, just I wear one 24 hours, 12 months. and I don't wear it. I don't have it on now. Like literally anytime I get out of the car and I walk into a trail somewhere, I've got it. So just the way I roll. So, okay. Yeah, Jennifer, you propose, I don't think we need to make any changes. If you want to try and make up a single sheeter, that'd be perfect.
Sure.
So.
Good. The only other thing was July 25th meeting. I'm actually on vacation, but hopefully I will have service where I'm going and I can attend that meeting.
Yeah, and I'm on vacation the next meeting, but I'm pretty sure I have service where I am, so. So we'll make it or break it.
Okay, so even though you're on vacation, you're planning to attend?
I am.
Okay.
Vacation.
Yeah, I can spend all day prepping for the meeting.
I can't. I'll be learning about mushrooms.
Yeah.
That's my vacation, a week-long seminar on how to identify mushrooms.
And I will not be prepping for the meeting all day, I will tell you. And it has nothing to do with mushrooms. It has more to do with hops and barley, probably. So. Anybody else? Anything? Wide open. We have one more motion for the night. Who wants to go?
Motion to adjourn.
Beatty with Benson for the second. Roll call vote. Caulfield's aye.
Benson, aye.
Carol, aye.
Crossman, aye.
Spady, aye.
Thank you all.
Later.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.